They say betrayal hurts the most when it comes from someone you trust. I learned that the night I came home early and found my girlfriend in bed with my best friend. But I didn't scream. I didn't fight. I just stared, then disappeared. No one knew where I went. Not her. Not him. Not even my family. For 7 years, I built a new life from scratch. I found peace, love, something real to hold on to. But just when I thought the past was buried for good, it came back. With a vengeance. And with a plan to destroy everything I had rebuilt. I never thought any of this was possible. It feels like something straight out of a detective movie. Watch until the end, because what happens at the end will blow your mind. But first, let's start with the day it all began. 7 years ago, I came home early from work with a bottle of wine under my arm and a grin on my face like some fool in a romantic comedy. I'd finished a job ahead of schedule, the client tipped me in cash, and I thought, why not swing by the market, grab Lana's favorite red, and make it a surprise night in? I even bought that stupid cheese she liked, the one that smells like gym socks and costs way too much for a tiny wedge. It had been a rough few weeks. We'd been distant, arguing about little things. She'd started working later. Kept her phone close, face down on the table. Still, I chalked it up to stress. Everyone has those phases. I thought maybe we just needed a night to reset. Laugh. Talk. Be us again. I parked in the back of our building like always. The sun was setting, gold light stretching across the pavement like it knew what I was walking into. I remember the wine bottle knocking against my leg as I climbed the stairs. Everything felt normal. Until I opened the door. I didn't make a sound. Didn't drop the wine. I just stood there, frozen, staring through the crack in the bedroom door. At first, I thought maybe I was seeing things wrong. But no, I wasn't. There she was. Lana. In our bed. With him. My best friend, Matt. Matt, who'd helped me build that damn bed frame. Matt, who'd stood next to me at my dad's funeral. Matt, who I'd once said was the brother I never had. I didn't yell. I didn't throw punches. Hell, I didn't even walk in. I just stared. The whole thing couldn't have lasted more than 15 seconds, but it burned into my brain like it was branded there. Something in me went ice cold. I turned around, walked back out, and shut the door softly behind me. I don't think they even heard it. I set the wine bottle on the kitchen counter on my way out. I remember thinking she'd probably wonder who brought it. I went straight to the bedroom we used as a storage room and pulled out my old duffel. It took me 10 minutes to pack. Just the essentials, some clothes, my tool belt, a picture of my mom from her last birthday, and the cash I kept hidden in the coffee can under the sink. I didn't leave a note. I didn't slam a single door. I wasn't about to give her the drama she probably expected. Let her figure it out when she walked into the kitchen and saw my keys missing and the closet half empty. But I wasn't quite done. Matt had this habit of stopping by O'Reilly's pub after work. A real low-key place over on 5th and Lenox. We used to hang out there ourselves, back before he decided to throw a match on my whole damn life. I knew he'd be there, and I needed to look him in the face one last time. I parked down the block and waited. My hands were steady, my mind clearer than it had been in days. I didn't have a plan, just a feeling. Sure enough, around 9:30, Matt strolled out of the bar, laughing, his jacket slung over one shoulder like he didn't have a care in the world. He didn't see me at first. As he walked toward his car, I stepped out of the shadows. He flinched when he heard my voice. Evening, Matt. He turned, confused. The smile dropped from his face. That's the last thing he remembers. He woke up in a hospital bed the next morning with a concussion, 3 cracked ribs, and no memory of what happened. Told everyone he must have slipped in the parking lot or got jumped by some drunk. I guess the cops didn't dig too deep. There was no camera out there, and Matt, he's too proud to admit he got taken down by someone he thought was soft. There was no report. No arrest. No charges. By the time he opened his eyes, I was long gone. I drove straight through the night. Changed my number before I hit the state line. Deleted my social media. Cut every string that tied me to that life. I didn't look back. I didn't check in. I didn't want closure. I wanted silence. And that's exactly what I left behind. After I left, I made damn sure I couldn't be found. Lana tried, though. I know she did. She called my phone until it stopped ringing. Sent messages I'd never read. She showed up at my old job looking for answers, but by then, I'd already cleaned out my locker and turned in my badge. They said I was gone. So did my cousin, my old fishing buddy, and even the guy at the auto shop who used to change my oil. Not because I asked them to lie, but because I never told them where I was going. Truth is, I didn't even know where I was going. I just drove. Through the night. One highway into the next. I stayed off the main routes and paid cash for gas and motels. It was like trying to outrun a wildfire I didn't even see coming. I crossed 2 state lines before the sun came up and didn't stop until I hit a little town with no chain restaurants and a hardware store that doubled as the post office. I rented a room above an old general store for $75 a week. The ceiling was cracked, the radiator made a sound like a dying raccoon, and the mattress was about as thick as a Bible. But it was mine. Quiet. Simple. No memories attached. I found a job gutting drywall in foreclosure homes. Dusty, back-breaking work that made the days blur. I didn't talk to the guys much. They called me Chicago, even though I wasn't from there. I didn't correct them. Didn't offer more than a nod or a yeah. I just kept to myself, showed up early, stayed late, and kept my head down. I paid in cash. Ate off the hot bar at a gas station. Washed my clothes in the sink. It wasn't glamorous. Hell, it barely felt like living, but it was quiet. And for a long time, that's all I wanted. Trust didn't come easy after that. I looked at people sideways, expecting some hidden motive in every smile. I didn't date. Didn't make friends. I'd go months without hearing my own voice outside of work. I spent most evenings sitting by the window with a lukewarm beer, listening to the trains pass through town and thinking about how easy it is to disappear in America if you really want to. Eventually, I moved to a better place, one with a kitchen, actual insulation, and a front door that didn't stick when it rained. I got promoted to site supervisor, picked up extra shifts, learned to fix things with more than just a sledgehammer. After a while, I even started to feel like I wasn't just hiding anymore. That's when I met Ella. She worked at the diner near the lumber yard. One of those women who could carry 5 plates at once and still remember your coffee order without asking. She had this easy way about her, like the world didn't owe her anything, but she still smiled at it anyway. I don't know why she started talking to me. Maybe she saw through the gruff exterior. Or maybe she was just kind to everyone. Either way, I kept coming back. Sat at the same stool every Tuesday and Thursday. Ordered the same thing. Left the same tip. She started leaving little notes on my receipt. Just things like, nice shirt, or you should smile more. After a few months, I asked her out. Took her to the fairgrounds for a demolition derby and a funnel cake. She laughed so hard when a car caught fire. She spilled powdered sugar all over her jeans. That laugh stuck with me. We didn't rush anything. I told her I wasn't great at talking about the past. She told me I didn't have to be. She never pried, never pushed, just held space when I needed it and kept showing up. I told her small truths, here and there, about how I used to have a different life. A woman I thought I'd marry. A betrayal I didn't see coming. I didn't give her names. Didn't talk about Matt. Or what happened in the parking lot. Some things I kept to myself. But Ella never made me feel like I had to bleed to be understood. She just listened. She made everything feel slower, simpler, like maybe I wasn't broken, just bruised. When I asked her to marry me, I dropped to both knees. Not because I was trying to be dramatic, but because one knee held the ring, and the other held everything I couldn't say out loud. Gratitude, relief, fear, hope. She said yes like it was the easiest question she'd ever answered. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a future again. But peace, I've learned, is a fragile thing. And some ghosts don't stay buried forever. It had been almost 7 years of silence. Not a word. Not a sighting. No weird calls. No letters. Nothing. I figured Lana had moved on with her life just like I had with mine. I didn't expect forgiveness, and I didn't need closure. What happened back then stayed buried. Until it didn't. 2 months before the wedding, I was out back trimming the hedges when I saw her. She was just standing there, on the sidewalk. Same old posture, arms crossed, weight on one leg, like she was trying to keep herself from running off. My chest locked up before my brain even caught up. I didn't say anything, just stared, like maybe if I blinked hard enough, she'd vanish like a bad memory. But she didn't. She looked different, thinner maybe, harder around the eyes. The kind of worn that doesn't come from time, but from guilt, or maybe bitterness. Like someone who'd carried around the same grudge for years and let it carve lines into her face. Hi, she said. I didn't answer. I know this is a shock, she went on, but I need to talk to you. That was the understatement of the year. I didn't invite her in. I didn't ask how she found me. I just said, you've got 2 minutes. That was all I had in me. She stepped in closer and held something out, a photo. One of those cheap ones you get from a school portrait day. And it was a little girl, maybe 6 or 7. Brown hair, wide eyes, crooked smile. "This is Samantha," she said. "She's your daughter." Tom stopped. The buzz of the hedge trimmer still echoed in my ears. I didn't even take the picture from her. I just looked at it, looked at her, looked back at the picture. I couldn't speak. My brain was a box of loose wires sparking in every direction. I didn't know what to believe. I didn't even know how to believe her. It felt like a trick, a mind game, something to drag me back into the storm I'd crawled out of. But at the same time, something in me shifted, a crack down the middle of everything I'd built. Because no matter how much I wanted to walk away, no matter how much I wanted to slam the door and pretend this never happened, there was a kid in that photo. And if there was even a sliver of truth in what Lana was saying, I had a responsibility. I asked her how she found me. She said she got curious, started digging, said someone back home mentioned they'd heard I was living somewhere north, working construction. She said she started calling companies in the area, asking around until one of the office girls gave her my name. I should have been mad at whoever leaked that, but honestly, I was too numb to care. She told me Samantha didn't know anything about me, said she had raised her alone and hadn't mentioned me, figuring I didn't want to be involved. That hit hard, harder than I expected, because no matter what Lana thought she knew about me, she had no right to decide that on her own. I asked her why she came now. Why, after 7 years of radio silence, she decided to drop this on my doorstep 2 months before I was supposed to marry someone else. She dodged that one, just said she felt it was time. I told her I needed a minute. Then I walked back into the house, shut the door, and sat at the kitchen table for what felt like an hour, just staring at the wall. My hands were shaking. My heart wasn't. That scared me more than anything. I'd spent years rebuilding trust, finding peace, learning how to breathe again. And now this. Ella came home an hour later. I hadn't moved. She knew something was wrong the second she saw me. I didn't lie. I didn't hide it. I told her someone from my past showed up and said I might have a daughter. I left out names. Just told her the bare bones. She didn't cry. Didn't panic. She just put a hand on my shoulder and said, "Whatever this is, we'll figure it out." I nodded, but truthfully, I didn't know what figuring it out even meant. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't sit still, couldn't stop thinking about the little girl in the picture. Samantha, a name I'd never heard but somehow couldn't forget. 7 years old, which meant Lana had been pregnant when I left. If that was true, then that meant she'd kept her hidden all this time. On purpose. And as much as I wanted to call it a lie, the timeline added up. So now I was standing at a fork in the road I never asked for. One path led to silence. The other led to something that could change my life forever. And I had to choose. We met at a diner on the edge of town. Not one of those charming roadside places with vinyl booths and jukeboxes. This one had more dust than customers and smelled faintly like mop water and burnt toast. The heat wasn't working that day, or maybe they just didn't bother turning it on. I kept my jacket on. Lana did too. She was already there when I walked in, sitting by the window with a stack of papers spread out like she was about to give a presentation. I could tell she was nervous, tapping her fingers, shifting in her seat. But I wasn't about to feel sorry for her. I slid into the booth across from her and didn't say a word. She started talking almost immediately. "I brought some things," she said, her voice tighter than I remembered. "Photos. Medical bills. School stuff." She pushed the first photo toward me. It was Samantha again, a little older than the school portrait. She was standing on a playground with a popsicle in her hand and a crooked headband. Her smile was big, like she had no idea the world could be cruel yet. "I don't want anything from you," Lana said quickly. "I just thought you deserved to know." I didn't respond. Just looked at her. Looked hard. I wanted to catch her slipping, see if this was just another stunt, another twist in the knife. She kept going. Said Samantha was smart, liked puzzles, hated carrots, and played with her socks inside out because the seams bothered her. It sounded real. Too real. That made it worse. The receipts came next, hospital records, a birth certificate with my name absent, school forms signed only by her. The timeline matched up. She'd been pregnant when I left, and I hadn't even known it. Or maybe I had missed the signs. Maybe I just didn't want to see them. I sat there, hands folded, nodding occasionally but not saying much. Every word she said felt like it had a hook buried in it. I wasn't sure what she wanted. Forgiveness? Gratitude? "I didn't tell you because I didn't think you wanted to be found," she said finally, eyes darting away. I bit the inside of my cheek. Hard. You're damn right I didn't want to be found, I said. But that doesn't mean I didn't deserve to know. She didn't reply. Just looked down at her coffee like it might give her a better answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced the living room until the sun came up. Something about the way she presented everything, it didn't sit right. She wasn't scared. She wasn't protecting Samantha. She had kept her hidden, locked away like a secret shame or a weapon. Not out of love. Out of spite. And I couldn't get past that. I made an appointment the next morning, paid out of pocket for the fastest lab I could find, and requested the DNA kit. No time for second-guessing. I wanted the truth, and I wanted it clean. We swabbed at another meeting, this one in the parking lot of a Walgreens. Classy, I know. But I wasn't about to let her back into my space, and I didn't want to stand in her world, either. Neutral ground felt safest. I watched her help Samantha swab her cheek. The little girl didn't seem to understand what was happening. She looked up at me with a sort of puzzled kindness, the kind that only kids can pull off. She didn't know me, but she didn't seem afraid either. I didn't say much, just thanked her and handed the envelope to the courier when they arrived. Then I waited. 2 weeks dragged like months. I tried to stay distracted, work, house stuff, anything to keep my hands busy. But at night, my brain wouldn't shut up. What if she was mine? What if this whole thing was a lie? What kind of man would I be if I ignored it? When the results finally came in, I opened the email sitting on the front porch with a mug of coffee that had gone cold. 99.9% match. That was it. The numbers were right there, plain as day. No more room for doubt. I had a daughter. A living, breathing piece of me out there in the world. A little girl I'd never held, never talked to, never even known existed. And Lana had hidden her. Not to protect her. Not because she was scared of me, but because she didn't want me to have that connection. She wanted it for herself. Or maybe she just didn't want me to be part of anything she couldn't control. The betrayal stung more than the affair ever did. That was flesh and failure. This was blood. This was time. This was a childhood I'd missed. First steps. First words. First days of school. All of it, gone. Because she decided I didn't get to know. And now that I did, I didn't know what the hell to do with it. I knew things were going to get messy, but I didn't expect that. I thought maybe, after the test confirmed it, Lana would want to talk about next steps like adults. Maybe we'd figure out a way I could slowly get to know Samantha, maybe set up some kind of visitation schedule, ease into it. But Lana didn't want peace. She wanted blood. It started with an envelope on my doorstep. Certified mail. Legal letterhead. Inside was a court filing. She was suing me for back child support. Not just from the day I found out, but from the day Samantha was born. 7 years of payments, plus penalties and interest. The number printed at the bottom made my stomach churn. She also demanded alimony, which made even less sense since we were never married. Said she sacrificed career opportunities while raising our child. And the cherry on top? Full custody. Not joint. Not shared. Full. She claimed I'd abandoned her during pregnancy, refused to take responsibility, and now posed a destabilizing influence in Samantha's life. Reading that last part made my hands shake. Abandoned her? She never told me she was pregnant. Never tried. Never gave me a chance. She made a decision to erase me, and now she was twisting it around to look like I was the one who disappeared on them. I showed the papers to Ella that night. I half expected her to pull away, to question me, maybe even wonder if there was some truth to what Lana said. But she didn't. She read the entire thing quietly, then folded it up and said, "Okay. So, what do we do next?" No hesitation. No drama. She stood beside me like a damn lighthouse in the storm. The next morning, I dug out a business card I'd been saving for years. A guy I'd met on a job site when I helped build an addition for a law office. He told me if I ever needed legal help, to give him a call. His name was Mr. Delaney. I made the call. Told him everything. Left nothing out. I expected him to pause or tell me it was a complicated case. Instead, he said, "All right. I've dealt with worse. Come in tomorrow and bring every document you've got." Delaney was a different breed. Wore the same gray suit every time I saw him. His desk was spotless except for a single legal pad and a fountain pen he clearly treasured. He had a stare that could freeze water and a voice that never rose above a calm drawl. But under all that calm, fire. He listened to my story, asked 100 questions, and took notes like a machine. He didn't blink when I told him about the DNA test or the history between Lana and me. He nodded slowly and said, "She thinks you're still the man she knew back then. That gives us an edge." We spent the next 3 weeks preparing like it was a military operation. He helped me dig up every shred of proof that I hadn't known about Samantha: texts, call logs, my sudden disappearance, and witness statements from folks who could vouch that I'd cut contact completely after the betrayal. Ella helped me organize paperwork, sat with me late at night while I recounted every detail I could remember. Lana, meanwhile, was doubling down. Her lawyer sent over a revised petition claiming emotional trauma, long-term financial strain, and an itemized list of unpaid expenses, including doctor visits, daycare, food, clothing, and even birthday parties. She even claimed I owed her reimbursement for missed work opportunities due to pregnancy and parenting. Delaney barely reacted, just circled phrases with his red pen and muttered, "That's going to bite her in court." I tried not to let the anger eat me alive, but it was hard. This wasn't about Samantha anymore, not really. Lana wasn't trying to build a bridge. She was trying to punish me. For leaving. For moving on. For daring to have a life she wasn't part of. I remember one night, sitting on the porch, staring at nothing, when Ella brought me a cup of coffee and sat beside me. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said. "I left," I replied. "You left a lie," she said. "You left pain." "That's not the same." I nodded, but I wasn't sure I believed it just yet. What I didn't know, what I felt deep down, was that I wasn't going to let Lana write my story for me. Not again. I had a right to know my daughter. I had a right to be heard. Delaney told me to be patient. Courts are slow. Judges are tired. Emotions mean nothing without evidence. So that's what we built, a case made of facts. Timelines. Voicemails. Records. Lana wanted a war? Fine. We gave her one. Court dates have a way of creeping up on you, no matter how far away they seem at first. The morning of the hearing, I woke up before the sun, ironed my only good shirt twice, and sat on the edge of the bed until Ella placed a hand on my shoulder. "You ready?" she asked. No, not really, but I nodded anyway. The courthouse was a beige block of concrete with bad lighting and chairs made to punish your back. We walked in side by side. I remember thinking, this is where everything changes. One way or another. Lana was already there with her lawyer. She looked polished, hair tied back tight, lips pressed into a line like she was holding her breath. Her lawyer was one of those expensive types with shiny shoes and a fake tan. He had folders stacked like bricks and a smirk that made me want to punch through a wall. But Delaney? He was calm. Same gray suit. Same leather folder. Same fountain pen. He didn't flinch when we were called in. Just adjusted his tie and said, "Let's go take back your name." We sat down. The judge was a woman in her 60s with glasses that hung on a chain and a voice that could slice through metal. She got right to it. No drawn-out speeches, no niceties. Lana's lawyer went first. He painted a story of abandonment, hardship, and neglect. Said I'd run off the moment things got hard. Said Lana had raised Samantha alone while I evaded responsibility. Said I showed back up only after being forced to acknowledge my daughter. I wanted to speak, but Delaney squeezed my arm and shook his head. "Let them talk," he whispered. "They're digging the hole themselves." Then it was our turn. Delaney stood up like he wasn't the least bit surprised by the circus act that had just taken place. "Your Honor," he said, voice steady, "everything my client just heard is false. And we have the proof to show it." He started with the DNA test, which Lana hadn't contested. Then he pulled out phone records, months of calls from Lana's number to mine right after I vanished. Not one. Not a text. Not a missed call. Nothing. He followed that with statements from coworkers, friends, even my old landlord, all backing up my disappearance and total lack of contact. But the nail in the coffin came from someone I didn't expect, Lana's old friend, Melanie. Melanie had moved out of state a few years ago, but Delaney tracked her down. She gave a written statement, sworn and notarized, saying Lana had told her back then that she was pregnant and that she was glad I didn't know, that she didn't need some man screwing up her plans, and that she'd raise the kid better without him. When the judge read that line out loud in court, Lana shifted in her seat. Her lawyer tried to object, but it was too late. Delaney wasn't done. He showed printouts of emails, copies we'd recovered from an old account I hadn't deleted, between me and Matt. One of them had Lana's name in it, dated before I vanished. It proved I had cut ties with both of them right after the betrayal and never once reached back out. We also had financial records showing I'd lived in a different state under a different employer starting just days after I left. Not a single trace of communication from her in over 7 years. The courtroom was quiet by the end of it. The judge leaned back, took off her glasses, and looked straight at Lana. "I've seen a lot in this room," she said, "but rarely do I see a case this clear-cut. She turned to me. You should have been told, she said. And you should have been given a chance. That was taken from you. Then came the ruling. Alimony? Denied. Back child support? Dismissed. And most important, joint custody. Not supervised, not temporary, joint. Equal say. Equal rights. Full recognition. I wanted to cheer, but instead I just nodded. It wasn't celebration I felt. It was something quieter. A weight lifting I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. Lana didn't say a word on the way out. She just kept walking, heels clicking like a metronome of frustration down the courthouse hall. I stood outside on the steps for a long time, the paper still in my hand. Ella hugged me, and for the first time in weeks, I finally let my shoulders drop. It wasn't everything. I hadn't gotten those years back. I hadn't been there for her first words, her scraped knees, her bedtime stories. That time was gone, stolen in silence. But this was something. And it was enough to begin again. Meeting Samantha wasn't like turning a key in a lock. It was slower, more delicate. Like building a fire from wet kindling, you've got to be patient, careful, and grateful for every flicker. We met in public at first. Short visits, court-approved. At the park, the library, a supervised center that looked more like a dentist waiting room. The first few times, she barely spoke. Just nodded or gave one-word answers. She had her mother's guarded eyes, but none of her coldness. Samantha was cautious, not cruel. Like a kid who'd already learned some people leave, and words can sting longer than bruises. But she warmed up, little by little. She started bringing drawings, questions, jokes she'd heard at school. I learned she liked peanut butter, hated math, and had a habit of braiding her shoelaces together when she was bored. Ella and I had read all the books on how to build trust with a child, but none of them prepared me for the moment she reached up and took my hand for the first time. Just held it, like it was the most natural thing in the world. That moment will stay with me for the rest of my life. And Ella, she didn't just accept Samantha. She welcomed her. From the very first meeting, Ella treated her like family. She never tried to act like a replacement or force herself into any title. She just listened, asked gentle questions, made pancakes with chocolate chip smiley faces, and learned which books Samantha liked at bedtime. Watching them sit on the porch, reading side by side with their legs crossed the same way, felt like a dream I never thought I'd get to have. But not everyone was happy. Lana hated the connection. You can see it in her tight-lipped smiles, the way her eyes lingered too long when she dropped Samantha off. She tried to hide it, but her body always betrayed her. She couldn't stand that we were happy, that Samantha was adjusting, that Ella wasn't just tolerating her, but loving her. And then the cookies. It was a Saturday. Samantha showed up with a box in her hands, white cardboard tied with a little red ribbon. She was smiling ear to ear. We made these last night, she said proudly. Mom said I should give them to Ella. She baked them just for her. Inside were a dozen cookies. Snickerdoodles, Samantha's favorite. There was even a note, written in Lana's handwriting on a pink index card. A small peace offering. Thank you for being kind to my daughter. Elle? Ella was touched. I was suspicious. Still, we thanked Samantha and set the cookies aside for later. Ella said she'd have one after lunch. But something didn't sit right with me. Lana wasn't the type to make peace. She was the type to plant weeds and water them in secret. When Ella wasn't looking, I took the box into the garage and opened one of the cookies. It smelled normal. Looked fine. I broke it in half and examined it. Something about the texture looked off. Powdery near the center. I didn't say anything to Ella at first. I didn't want to panic Samantha. But later that night, after she went to bed, I told Ella I wanted to get the cookies tested, just to be sure. She didn't argue. Just nodded and said, "You think she'd actually do something?" "I don't know," I said, "but I don't want to find out the hard way." The next morning, I dropped 2 cookies at the county lab. Told them I suspected food tampering and paid for rush processing. 2 days later, the results came in. Rodenticide. Rat poison. Enough to cause serious harm, especially if someone had more than one. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I showed the report to Ella, and she went pale. She used her own daughter, she whispered. She used Samantha to deliver it. We didn't waste time. We called the police, turned over the cookies, the note, the packaging, everything. I handed over a sworn statement, and Ella did too. The officer didn't say much. Just nodded, took notes, and left with a box and a sealed evidence bag. I sat on the porch for a long time that night. Not because I was surprised Lana could stoop so low, but because a part of me had hoped she wouldn't. The knock came early, before sunrise. I was already up, sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of black coffee and a mind too busy to rest. Ella was still in bed, and Samantha was curled up on the couch with a blanket, watching cartoons with the volume turned down low. I opened the door to find two officers standing on the porch. They asked if I was willing to make a formal statement. I said yes before they even finished the sentence. By then, we'd already turned over the poisoned cookies, the note, and the lab report. The handwriting matched. The delivery timeline lined up with our security footage from past drop-offs. It wasn't a mountain of evidence, but it was enough to make a case and enough to make a judge listen. Lana was arrested that afternoon outside her office. The story spread fast through the town. Most people didn't know what to believe. Poisoning? Through her own daughter? It sounded too dark to be true. But the evidence didn't lie. I didn't take any joy in seeing her led into court wearing cuffs. If anything, it just made me tired. This whole thing had gone beyond bitterness or jealousy. It had turned into something twisted and dangerous. Something that could have ended with Ella in a hospital or worse. The case took months. There were hearings, delays, evaluations. Lana's lawyer tried to paint her as mentally overwhelmed, a stressed single mother pushed too far. But it was hard to explain away a calculated plan that used a child as a delivery method. Eventually, she took a plea deal. Guilty. Probation. Mandatory psychiatric treatment. No prison time, which stung. But at least she was out of our lives in any real way. The judge didn't hesitate when it came to Samantha. Custody was stripped. Full and permanent. I became her sole guardian, legal, physical, every bit of it. The judge called it a necessary protection, and I agreed. They offered Lana supervised visitation, a chance to maintain contact under strict conditions. She didn't show up. Not once. No letters. No phone calls. Just silence. I'd like to say I was shocked, but I wasn't. Lana had always wanted control, not connection. And when she couldn't control the narrative anymore, she walked away from the story entirely. So now it's just the three of us. Me, Ella, Samantha. We're not perfect. We still carry things we don't talk about. There are nights when Samantha wakes up from dreams she doesn't understand. There are moments when Ella looks out the window a little too long, or when I check the locks twice before bed. Some wounds don't bleed, but they stay tender just the same. But we're here. We're building something new. Ella makes burnt pancakes every Sunday morning. She says it's tradition now, and Samantha insists we eat them even when the smoke alarm chirps. We play board games, walk the dog we finally adopted. He only has 3 legs, but runs like he doesn't know it. And on Fridays we make homemade pizza even though we're all terrible at stretching the dough. Samantha has her own room now. Posters on the wall. Her own little desk where she does homework and doodles endless pictures of houses and people holding hands. She calls Ella by her first name, but sometimes I catch her saying Mom when she thinks no one's listening. We don't push it. We let things come as they are. Some days, I find myself watching them, Ella teaching Samantha how to braid yarn, or the two of them dancing in the living room to old songs on the radio, and I get this tight feeling in my chest. Like something good took root where I thought only weeds could grow. We still carry scars, but we wear them like patches on a well-used coat, not hidden, not flaunted, just there to remind us of where we've been and what we've come through. I won't pretend the past didn't try to bury us. It did. But we learned how to grow through the dirt. And if you ask me now, after everything, if it was worth it? Yes. Yes, it was. Share your thoughts in the comments. Was the punishment Lana received fair, or should she have gone to prison? If you liked the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.